An attractive young woman went to take photos of what she thought was an abandoned home. As she snapped photographs, she decided to take a closer look. Needless to say, what she found in the living room was not what she was expecting. Leslie Muir, an urban explorer and photographer, was on her way home after a long day of exploring on her birthday when a seemingly abandoned red house caught her eye. Seeing art in the dilapidated structure and overgrown yard, she stopped on a whim to snap a few photos of the mysterious residence. However, she would soon be left in disbelief as she discovered what was inside. As an urban explorer, Leslie has countless photographs of forgotten places, but this random red house changed her life forever when she was least expecting it. Helping herself to someone else's property, she walked around and took pictures of all the interesting details. That's when her curiosity led her inside the house, where she made her shocking discovery, which no one would have known about had Leslie's inquisitiveness and maybe even fate not put her in the right place at the right time. Under her username _tourist on Instagram, Leslie Muir explained that she's seen this house before, and it's always intrigued her for reasons that she wasn't sure about until she decided to stop one day. Since it looked like it had been deserted for years, she assumed it was abandoned and wasn't worried about angering anyone by taking a look inside. The driveway is overgrown, the roof is caving in, and the interior would lead anyone to believe this land had been deserted, she explained. Right there in the living room, Leslie's life would be forever changed when she heard a quaint hello. In the middle of what she thought was an abandoned home, she met Lawrence, who had been sitting inside alone. This is Lawrence. He lives in a house I had believed to be abandoned, Leslie wrote alongside a photo she took of him. I found him in the living room. He has a hard time getting around, so he spends most of his time in there. Alone, she added, as she began to share his tragic story. Leslie Muir explained that Lawrence is missing his right eye and his left isn't much better off because of severe cataracts. But his ill health hasn't seemed to hurt his spirit. Even after noticing a stranger essentially helping themselves to his life, he was nothing but sweet and kind to me, Leslie recalled, which must have been a relief after realizing the abandoned home she had entered uninvited and unannounced wasn't empty at all. He was even nice enough to let me take his picture, which I will always treasure, Leslie said, according to Little Things. The photographer stayed and got to know this man over the next 3 hours, and she was probably the first person he interacted with in months. On her own birthday, she stumbled upon the greatest gift a new friend. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of something beautiful. Leslie Muir had crossed Lawrence's path at just the right time. Sadly, Lawrence didn't have a lot of time left. He was dying, and not a single person was around to care or be there for him when he did. He had mentally prepared himself to leave this life alone since he had spent every day that way for years in this hardly inhabitable house. That is until Leslie came along and vowed to keep him company. Leslie kept her promise, ensuring Lawrence wouldn't be lonely anymore, and the two have since shared several meals together. They've even enjoyed BBQs and outings that neither had ever imagined. Over the next several weeks after Leslie found Lawrence on that fateful day, she took care of him, but then his health started to rapidly decline. However, Leslie wasn't about to let Lawrence be abandoned ever again. She helped him move into a retirement home, where she continued to visit with him often. He's safe and warm and seems to be fairly happy to be around some new people. Although I know he misses home, Leslie wrote of her friend's move. Lawrence didn't have very much longer to live, but at least he would leave this life feeling loved, all because a stranger decided to stop. He shared something with me that will stay with me forever. He said the day I showed up was the best day of his life, Leslie wrote, feeling ashamed of sounding self-righteous while also understanding how he feels. The best day of my life was when I met him. He gave me the chance to really do something for someone, an act of kindness with no expectation of reward. Leslie Muir concluded that no one takes a picture of something they want to forget, so after meeting Lawrence, she takes his picture as often as possible. There are angels who walk among us, and Leslie is one of them. She stopped at the right time to be Lawrence's family, finding that the house she had thought was empty wasn't abandoned at all, but the man inside was until she stepped in, showing him kindness and love in his last days. No one deserves to be forgotten, and Leslie ensured that Lawrence never will be. Leslie's encounter with Lawrence didn't just change his life, it profoundly impacted hers as well. She began to reflect on the serendipity of the situation, realizing how easily she could have driven past that red house without a second thought. But something compelled her to stop, an inexplicable tug that she now believes was fate. The decision to explore that house on her birthday felt like more than mere chance. It was a moment meant to alter both their lives forever. As Leslie got to know Lawrence, she learned about the years of isolation he had endured. His only companions had been the crumbling walls around him and the faint memories of a lifelong past. Once a skilled carpenter, Lawrence had built much of the house himself decades earlier. However, time and circumstance had stolen his health, his loved ones, and eventually his connection to the outside world. Hearing his story, Leslie felt a deep sense of responsibility to ensure that Lawrence's final days were filled with compassion and human connection. Determined to make a difference, Leslie used her photography to raise awareness about Lawrence's situation. She shared his story on her social media platforms, calling on her followers for help. The response was overwhelming. Strangers from all over sent supplies, letters of encouragement, and even financial donations to assist with Lawrence's care. What began as an impromptu visit to an old house turned into a community-driven mission to uplift a man who had been forgotten. One of the most touching moments came when Leslie organized a small gathering for Lawrence at his home. With the help of some of her followers, she arranged for a meal, music, and a few neighbors to join. For the first time in years, Lawrence's house was filled with laughter, conversation, and the warmth of human presence. It was a day that reminded him of better times and left everyone present deeply moved. As weeks turned into months, Leslie became a regular fixture in Lawrence's life. She would visit him almost daily, bringing groceries, preparing meals, and simply sitting with him to talk. Lawrence often joked that she had become the daughter he never had. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, and Leslie made it her mission to ensure that Lawrence's story wasn't just another fleeting moment of online virality but a testament to the power of human kindness. When it became clear that Lawrence could no longer stay in his deteriorating home, Leslie took action. She worked tirelessly to find him a place in a reputable retirement home where he could receive the care he needed. Moving day was bittersweet. Lawrence was reluctant to leave the house he had built, but he trusted Leslie and knew she had his best interests at heart. As they drove away, Leslie promised him that she would visit often, and she kept her word. At the retirement home, Lawrence found a sense of community he hadn't experienced in years. He quickly became a beloved figure among the staff and other residents, regaling them with stories of his younger days and showing off the photographs Leslie had taken of him. True to her word, Leslie visited regularly, often bringing along small gifts or treats to brighten his day. Each visit was a reminder to Lawrence that he was not alone. In one particularly poignant moment, Lawrence confided to Leslie that she had given him something he had thought impossible, a second chance at life. "You didn't just save me," he told her one afternoon. "You reminded me what it feels like to be human, to matter." The weight of his words stayed with Leslie, reinforcing her belief in the importance of small acts of kindness. Even as Lawrence's health continued to decline, his spirit remained bright. In his final days, surrounded by newfound friends and with Leslie by his side, he expressed a sense of peace that had eluded him for years. When he eventually passed away, it was not in the cold, lonely confines of his broken house, but in a warm, loving environment filled with people who cared for him. After Lawrence's passing, Leslie organized a small memorial service to honor his life. Friends, neighbors, and even some of her social media followers came together to celebrate the man who had touched their hearts. Through tears, Leslie spoke of the unexpected gift Lawrence had been to her, a reminder of the profound impact a single encounter can have. Leslie continues to share Lawrence's story through her photography and social media, ensuring that his legacy lives on. She's since made it her mission to use her platform to advocate for the elderly and isolated, inspired by the incredible bond she shared with Lawrence. Each time she looks at the photo she took of him, she is reminded of the power of compassion and the difference one person can make. Leslie's experience with Lawrence didn't just inspire her personal journey, it sparked a broader movement among her followers and local community. Many began reaching out to elderly neighbors, checking in on those who might be isolated or forgotten. Inspired by Leslie's story, several even took up volunteering at retirement homes or assisting local charities focused on senior care. The ripple effect of her chance encounter with Lawrence became a testament to how one act of kindness can ignite countless others, creating a wave of compassion that touched more lives than Leslie could have ever imagined.